Welcome, friends. So today I'm going to share kind of a batshit crazy idea that came to me, and it's slowly unfolding into being a very interesting concept. So if you want to go on this ride, keep on listening because we're going to dive in. So let me set the stage for you. I have been getting these symbols in my mind for a while now, and I trusted that they would unfold, and I started diving into runes, and it all just started flooding out of me. So this whole sort of living consciousness is coming through the symbols that I'm working with, and as I was sitting with them, I don't even know the train of thought, which is why I also followed the thread, because I find there's sometimes potency in those moments. And I had this thought, however you want to define thought, in connecting the idea that children are said to be in that more of a theta brainwave state up until on average around the age of 7, right? Give or take. And then we move into alpha. And theta is that place that you go into like in meditation. Now alpha is more of a relaxed state, beta is more of a in the world doing, also stress depending on the frequency of it, the hertz of it. So I won't go into brain waves, it's really not what this is about. But I was connecting about how children are in that theta brainwave state up until on average around 7, right? Give or take 6 to 8. That is also the age when the adult teeth start presenting themselves. They lose their baby teeth or their milk teeth and they develop their adult teeth. And again, it sounded kind of batshit crazy. I was like, brainwaves and teeth. Like, how do those connect? And yet, so I followed the thread. And of course, I used ChatGPT to see, with discernment, of course. And I discovered that Rudolf Steiner talked about the teeth. And he saw the teeth, the baby teeth, the milk teeth, as the etheric body, where sort of the spirit becomes manifest. And I started really sitting with this idea of how there's many layers to this, and I will hopefully cover them all. But I started sitting with initially this idea of how our baby teeth, and when we are young, right, we are in this place of our knowing. We have this place of innocence and receptivity, joy. I mean, depending on your lived experience, of course. It's not true for everyone. But if you are in the conditions to support your being, to support who you are, you can really be in your essence. You can be the individual that you are here to be. And it was this idea that the baby teeth, the milk teeth, are this embodiment of this knowing that is ever present at that age when they're in this theta brain state. And then we shift out of it, and that knowing is embodied in our teeth, in our being, in our cells. Like our cells are the manifestation of the soul that we are. But this idea that the teeth can be seen, right, as this embodiment of our essence. Yet if we are not supported in who we are from a young age, if we have expectations thrust upon us as to who we should be, how we should be, who or what we shouldn't be, though it is embodied within us, it is within us, that knowing is within us, it's blocked. And this creates like a shadow, right? Because as I've spoken about, you can check it out here, I had this beautiful unfolding around shadows being a block in the light. Because a shadow is created when there is a block in the light, right? The light comes if there's something there. it creates a shadow. Think about shadow puppets on a wall. It can be super fun, right? Shadow is not a bad thing. It is just something to move through, something to learn from. And there can be joy like shadow puppets. But this idea that if we are conditioned into being someone that we are not, there is this shadow cast upon our knowing, yet it is always within us. It brought me also to this idea of the tooth fairy. Because the tooth fairy, at first I was like, ugh, we pay kids for their knowing. And it brought me, though, as I sat with it, right, I kind of went into that negative mindset around it. Even though I love the idea that we support kids believing in fairies. So I sat with it and I realized that the tooth fairy can really sort of set the stage for a lot of different mindsets around working for money. And that's the world we live in as of now. And this idea that soul-sucking jobs, right? I'm going to take your soul and give you money for it. It's kind of a sense of, I'm going to take your knowing, you are going to be who I want you to be, and then I'll give you money for that. And then also this idea of, you have this passion, you have this unique essence and message and something, right, or otherwise to bring forth into this world, and thereby when you can express that into the world, you are provided for through money, what have you. Also the whole narrative of, oh, you love doing this, turn it into a business, right? So there's so many different narratives that we can stem from the whole tradition of the tooth fairy. And now when we look back in history, many different ancient and indigenous cultures had other beliefs around the baby teeth. Some were planted in the ground. Some were used actually as protective amulets in war. So there are so many different traditions and beliefs around the baby teeth. It's kind of actually really interesting if you explore them, and if it's of interest, I invite you to do so. But it brought me to this idea of a tooth tree, because I really loved that. Resonated with me, the idea of planting the teeth by a tree, because I feel, it's my own belief, that the trees are intimately and intricately connected to us, more so than we know at this time. I think there's a deep connection with humans and the trees that is quite profound. I mean, the connection with everything, but there's something I feel around trees and humans that will unfold in time. So I love this idea of a tooth tree, of planting the teeth by a tree. And I love it too because I couldn't say R. I had a speech impediment when growing up. I actually couldn't hear. It was when I was learning how to speak, so I had a really bad speech impediment. And so I couldn't say R, so tooth or truth was tooth. So it's like a truth tree. Say that 3 times fast. Truth tree. Okay. Tooth tree can be the truth tree, where you are embodying into the earth your knowing, your essence, and then you have the tooth fairy, because I don't want to get rid of the tooth fairy, friends. The tooth fairy is always with you, always supporting you in your knowing, in your essence of who you are. And this also brought me down a path of frequency healing. I've had a lot of messages around healing through frequency alignment, of finding the unique frequency of, say, a heart cell, of a liver cell, of an individual, and then being able to utilize that frequency to bring cells, energy, anything out of alignment back into alignment, thereby completely shifting the medical system as we know it, which could be cool. And also, this is nothing new. This is nothing new. But it feels like it's a new direction that it can be taken in, that can be more supportive of people in a more accessible way. And a couple things I forgot to mention on this note of the physical body, when we think about the milk teeth, the baby teeth, slowly falling out around the age of 7, even Steinhardt said, that's the etheric body, and then you shift into a different body. And I'm not super familiar with his work, so I can't recall the body. But it's basically the being that you are in this world. And if you think about it from an anatomical perspective, in terms of cellular regeneration, they say that you are a new person anatomically, physiologically, at the cellular level every 7 years, because everything has cellular turnover, with the bones taking the longest, 7 years. So it's just some really interesting connections. And then the other connection that got me curious was Bashar, the chattering of the teeth. And I heard him speak about this a while ago. I haven't watched him in a while, actually. But I remember him speaking about it, and I can't remember what he said necessarily. It was a woman asking about her father who did it. And I wonder if it's a subtle nod of bringing awareness to the teeth. So again, these are just thoughts. They're just ideas. I'm not saying there's any sort of eternal truth in this. It's just a different perspective, which again can expand your consciousness, shifting your perspective, shifting out of what you've known, seeing beyond the known. So I'm really curious what you all think. This literally all just happened today, so I'm coming at you off the cuff. So hopefully this is somewhat making sense. I don't really usually share in a linear fashion, but hopefully it makes sense in some way. And please comment. I'm really curious of your thoughts, and I will definitely bring more to the table with this as it unfolds. But until next time, friends, stay curious.